Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast, number 51. I'm Ryan Suhr. With me, as always, is Don. Don't call it a comeback. Helbig. Don, how you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, Ryan. It's just enjoying the sun. It's a nice part of the summer right now that I like. I know a lot of people like it when it's a little bit cooler, but when it's 85, 92 kind of a range, that's my time of year.
85 to 92. That's your preference right there? It's a little high for me.
That's the sweet spot for me. I love it when it's like that. Not a fan of the cold. Never have been.
No, I'm not a fan of the cold either. I do like that kind of perfect weather when it's like 72 and a little overcasty and stuff. I enjoy that personally.
Yeah, move to San Diego if that's what you want every day.
I couldn't afford it if I wanted to. Awesome. So right off the bat, update on the merchandise front. We got some other stuff rolling out.
Well, we have T-shirts. We've had some orders on the T-shirts, and we're getting those ready to get shipped out. But we're also going to be able to have tumblers. Also going to be able to have buttons available. If you're interested in these products, these items, just send us a message on Twitter, which is attractions_GRP, and we'll let you know about pricing, and just let us know what you're interested in. And that's just the start, and we'll start showing these products soon on our Twitter and Facebook pages to let everybody know what's available, and also show you on the video portion on YouTube, and also show you there.
Oh, awesome. Yeah, it's we're going to get something set up where you can just buy through the online store sooner than later, but we're going to go the back route and come up with the products and then figure out how to get them in people's hands afterwards, because
it's a nice looking shirt, with everybody that I've talked to that listens to our podcast. They really like the logo, and it pops on a T-shirt. So we appreciate those that have made the purchase already.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're walking around the park, especially if you're wearing a Attractions Group podcast T-shirt, see us, stop us, take a selfie with you. It'd be fun. So Don, before we get into anything else, just remember you can watch us on YouTube. There's an actual video version where it's sun camera. It's not just a logo or anything. By searching for the Attractions Group podcast, please subscribe there. We're available on all your favorite podcast apps. As Don mentioned, we are at on Twitter at attractions_GRP. We are extending out to threads and all that stuff, but that's not a priority right now. And Don, didn't you have there was some sort of like personal thing a lot of people have been talking about, especially this past week. Did you want to address that on the show?
Yeah, there's some big news. Obviously it's been out there on social media, but we'll address that near the end of the show. We got a lot of other things to talk about before we get to me.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the first time I've ever seen you say, let's talk about something else before we talk about me. But Don, we've been...
Oh, come on, man.
We kicked this...
That's not true.
So we almost kicked off this episode early today because we started posting about this on social media, which is not something we typically do, mainly because our subject matters change, and that's why we don't openly talk about next week's guest or whatever, because people cancel or whatever. But so it's no secret to those of you who follow us on our personal, social media or on the Attractions Group social media that today we're going to be remembering LeSourdsville Lake in Monroe, Ohio. I knew it as Americana Amusement Park. So let's start with the history of it, Don. So it opened, 1922?
Yeah, 1922 was basically a family picnic destination with some swimming amenities back then. And then around the 1940s, that's when it started to transform into an amusement park. So they started adding rides, different attractions, an arcade. So that's when it started to become what most people knew it as an amusement park. 40s, 50s, 60s, early 70s, was the place of choice for summer entertainment in the Miami Valley, Southwest Ohio. It really flourished during those years. So everybody knows kind of in the 70s after Kings Island opened, things changed for them. They had a rebrand in 1978 to Americana, and, things kept happening. They had different fires and things. A big one in 1990, electrical fire that took out a number of different attractions and buildings, and it was about $5 million plus in damages. and it was just never the same. That led to bankruptcy, and then just a series of different owners that operated the park through 1999. Briefly opened again in 2002 with Jerry Couch owning it, but could just never get that traction back that they had in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and early 70s.
Yeah, and unfortunately, a lot of theme parks of this type were lost to time. It had some great roller coasters. They tried to shoehorn in some modern rides toward the end, but this is your typical, your tilt-a-whirl, your roundup, your wooden coaster, your carousel, stuff like that. Um,
Yeah, and when you talk about flat rides,
mhm.
Americana, LeSourdsville Lake, whatever you knew it as, it didn't take a back seat to many parks when it came to their lineup of flat rides. I mean, they had all the classics. You mentioned something like the Tilt-A-Whirl and roundups, those kind of things, Trabant, uh, log flume, just all those kind of rides. So when if you were a family, maybe you weren't into roller coasters or something, it was a great place to go. And so many of the attractions, families, friends, they could all ride it together.
Yeah, absolutely. I do remember riding the log flume. Now that was a late edition. That was like early to
Late
mid. Yeah,
edition,
that
yeah.
was early to mid '80s at some point. The loggers run.
Right,
And
right.
I actually have a like a beer stein, not like full beer stein. It's just glass. It's not very decorative, but it says Americana Loggers Run. Somebody saw that at a like a secondhand store up north, like a little north of Cincinnati, and they bought it for me. So thank you for that. I still have it. What was your favorite ride there? Don't say train and don't say carousel.
If I can't say those, no, it was the Screeching Eagle. It was known as the Space Rocket when I first rode it.
Hmm.
It was after I rode the Racer in '72, but later that summer, I was ready to ride roller coasters then. Uh, incredible coaster. It had just this abundance of airtime, spectacular airtime. It was a roller coaster that was built in 1927 by John Miller and was relocated
Hmm.
for the 1940 season to LeSourdsville Lake. Not the biggest, not the longest, not the fastest. I think it was like 70 feet, was the height.
Hmm.
The drop was 65 feet. You see a lot of coasters now in kids areas that have a 65-foot drop. That was 2,600, plus feet of track. It reached speeds up to 40 miles per hour. It was about a minute and 35 in ride time. The train was short. It had three cars, and there was three benches in each car, so the capacity was 18. But I remember in the '70s, there was a couple times, where, I was knocking out 40 to 60 rides a day on that. And sometimes, they would tell me to go ride another ride before I came back to that, because that was one of the things they wanted you to do the whole park. So they would say, "Hey, kid, go ride something else, then come back." So a lot of great memories on that. Just a spectacular coaster, and they actually wanted to relocate it. John Robinson, a good friend of mine, his father was involved at LeSourdsville Lake, running the park and that. But he's got his own marketing company now, where he works with the smaller parks. But he was looking into moving it to Lake Winnipesaukee, which is in Chattanooga, Tennessee. But because by that time, after Americana closed, you're getting into the late early 2000s, 2010, 14, 15 range, all these changes in laws, you had to keep it up to code if you were going to move it. So there were some of the tightness and, the drops. There wasn't enough distance between the time you dropped down and went back up, and things like that had to be a little bit expanded.
Hmm.
So it was just going to cost more to move it, do all those renovations on it, reprofile it and things. It just would have been cheaper to just build a new ride. So unfortunately, it had to be demolished, and that ended up being, unfortunately, the right decision for that coaster. But well respected by coaster enthusiasts.
Yeah, great ride. And let's deep a little bit diver in. Let's dive a little bit deeper into. See, I'm losing my ability to speak, Don. This gets worse. This is degenerative, and I lose it a little bit more every time we do an episode. It's somehow your fault, I swear. Anyway, let's dive a little bit deeper into the Screeching Eagle. So I remember when Americana was our like once a year theme park experience until I was probably 8 or 9, and I started going to Kings Island because my parents saw it as Kings Island is the big, expensive, grown-up thing, and Americana is it's
Hmm.
$4.50 or whatever. Who cares if they're afraid to ride everything thing? So I was always afraid to ride, but I did get to ride in 2002 when the park had a brief 2 or 3 month reopening under Jerry Couch. Now it had buzz bars. It had, if I recall correctly, it had NAD trains, but a lot of PTC work was done on them. So it was almost like a hybrid
Yes.
on it. Um,
Yeah.
but I'd be remiss if we talked about, the Eagle without mentioning our friend, and that's Al Freeman. So Al Freeman, those of you who are local to Cincinnati may know him for years. He worked in a lot of the shops at Kings Island, but his career was that he worked on the Screeching Eagle, and it
Yeah.
wasn't like he was a ride op. He was back in the day when he worked there. They ran the ride all summer and then they maintained it all winter, and he's got plenty of stories on his social media about, he remembers a time when a piece of track came up and this and that and all sorts of just amazing stories. Great guy. I really miss him. He's
Yeah.
since retired. He's not working anymore, but he like just fantastic. And I thought we would be remiss if we didn't mention his name along with the Screeching Eagle.
Well, it's
um
hard to say LeSourdsville and Americana without mentioning Al. And, as you said, a great guy, and love seeing his pictures, and especially the ones that he's showing of whether it was called the Space Rocket at the time or the Screeching Eagle, and just the maintenance work that was being done. But you also, I mean, it was, you didn't have the control, box and things that you see now, on the coasters at parks. It had in the middle of the floor, there's the lever, where you're pulling the lever and that releases the train, and that's how you stopped it coming back in. A lot of times, one person operation. You didn't have two or three people on the crew; it was one person. And that's how it was back then. But just a phenomenal ride, and just so many memories riding that ride. And before it even came to LeSourdsville, its original name was the Cyclone.
mhm.
So they carried that name over and then changed it to the Space Rocket, then changed it later on to the Screeching Eagle. Great logo.
Oh yeah.
And I still, somewhere have a T-shirt with that logo on it. And that was one of the, the few items in that they did sell there with the T-shirts. But they had your typical carnival games. Um, they had good entertainment, a lot of different special events. There was one event, that they did that was they took this um, like a lot of Jello, and they had people could jump in the Jello and try to find a key to win a car. So they would do crazy stunts like that all the time. And you always heard about the things they were doing.
Mhm.
You'd see it on the news all the time. They had some big name acts that from the 1940s on that played there. As it got into the 70s, you saw a little bit more of some of the local TVs had their morning daytime kind of shows, the Bob Ron show, the Nick Clooney show, those kind of things. Those kind of took over for the bands and that were out there. But there was always entertainment going on, and they were pretty busy on the weekends, especially on Sundays. That seemed to be their big day. There'd be crowds of any, 7, 8, 9, 10,000 would come on a Sunday, big group sales day for them. And that was one of the things that was, because of the group business that they did, a lot of picnics with companies, and they'd done those for years. They really weren't too concerned when Kings Island started construction. They felt that there was plenty of room for both. They thought, based on the cost of operating their park versus what it was going to cost to operate Kings Island, they thought if they got 600, 700,000 people, they were going to do well. And they thought Kings Island needed to do well more than 1 million people, just to make ends meet. So they didn't really see it as a threat, but it became that. And, the rest is history there.
Yeah, I agree. They famously, you can't look up LeSourdsville Lake without seeing their quote about, "Oh no, this town's big enough for both of us." Clearly,
Yeah,
clearly,
they thought because people, they thought because people would be coming, from Columbus and Indianapolis and all those other places to go to Kings Island, that if they were staying in the area, that they would certainly want to go check out LeSourdsville Lake where they were there. It just didn't happen. Kings Island was at the time they thought, they're going to be too expensive. They're going to be $6 a ticket,
mhm,
and Americana was $3.50.
right.
going into 1972. Uh, but the picnics, which was the bread and butter of LeSourdsville, a lot of that moved to Kings Island. And when they lost that, it was it just wasn't going to be the same. It was going to be tough year after year to make ends meet.
So you mentioned something interesting. They had a bunch of people basically playing Double Dare a couple decades before that became a thing, where they're trying to find a key in
Right.
Jello in special acts. So the Flying Walindas, famously,
Yeah.
now that was like a residency thing there. They were there for a couple years, right?
Yeah. They had a daily show,
Hmm.
and it was small. Where they were maybe walking like 20 feet, across the wire net, but you had the whole family there, and that's where I first met Nick Walinda and met Delilah Walinda, his
Hmm.
mom, and other members of the family, and it was a very good show. And those are the kind of things they did. I mean, there was good entertainment there.
Yeah, and then you also after that, sorry, you kind of went on a monologue, and I want to break it down because I do have thoughts to interject. But you said like Bob Braun would do his morning show and stuff. So would you?
Well, it's daily show, yeah, show, yeah.
Well, yeah.
That's what they would do out there, and
Okay, so would you say that things like having the Walindas come in and stuff like that was very similar to today's market, like a PR opportunity where it's great that they come in and they entertain the guests, but the true value to the park is when 180 other thousand other people read the article about it or whatever, you know.
yeah. I mean, it gave them something, to work with as a PR thing to come see the Walinda, the Flying Walindas, come see them at that time it was Americana.
Hmm.
It was, everybody, no matter what age you were, you liked that show. It was fun, and it was just to watch them walk the wire. Like I said, even though it wasn't super high or long or anything like that, it was still spectacular. So you'd see things like that there.
Yeah, I mean, and you always try to figure out how they did it or whatever, even though they're very openly saying there's no trick. It's all about balance. But I still don't believe that because I could never walk one of those wires. Yeah. So
No, but a lot of like it's a lot of fun rides.
yeah.
We were talking about the Screeching Eagle, but some other ones. I loved the carousel that they had
Mhm.
there. That one was a classic.
Unfortunately, they
It
sold off the
was
horses in the early '80s, though, didn't they?
no, they did not. They weren't able to do that.
They weren't.
You know why? No,
Why? Why couldn't?
they were not able to do that. The carousel, which was PCT number
Hmm.
71, it debuted in 1924, but in 1988 it burned to the ground,
Yeah.
and that was this was 2 years before the other fire that they had in 1990. But I remember being really devastated, when I heard that news. Woke up the next morning, after it had happened, and it's all over the news in the morning, and it was one of my favorite rides there. But it was things like that that started happening near the end. It seemed like they were plagued with one thing or another, and it wasn't what it was in the 70s by the late 80s.
Yeah. Yeah. So I did see on the Wikipedia. I trust you over Wikipedia that they had sold the carousel horses, but you could be right. I don't know. That'd be an interesting thing to follow up with at some point. But yeah. So as a kid, like when I went there as a little kid, my favorite rides were the Roundup, which I think might have been Hoos. I think that was kind of a
Roundup.
yeah. So the Electric Rainbow, as they called it, which is
Hmm.
now at Strickers Grove. That's a private
Yeah.
amusement park in Ross, Ohio. That's open on the 4th of July, a day in October, and then like one other day per year. So if you miss that ride, you can go there. I distinctly remember riding the Rocco plane, which went to Coney Island, Cincinnati, and then I don't know
Hmm.
where it is now. All the rides got bought up. I do not believe it was scrapped. I think that it's on a fair course or
It's
it's
somewhere, but I lost track of that one.
yeah. So I remember that one from 2002 because I went there. I would have been about 19
Hmm.
in 2002. So I remember that, and then I rode that again in Coney Island before Coney Island got rid of their rides. And so funny story for you. I'm really good at Rocco planes because I'm not good at anything else. But one thing I can do is get the thing spinning like crazy. So I had it spinning, and then I knew that we were supposed to get off in the next one. So we were spinning like forward flipping like crazy, and then as soon as we hit the bottom where we're supposed to get out, I dead stopped it, so we were upside down. And I just told the ride op, like, yeah, I don't know what happened. What's going on here? Like, just playing dumb. And they were just like, let go of the bar, let go of the bar. And then I did.
Yeah, let go of the bar. Yeah.
But that was fun. As I mentioned, I remember the log jammer. The log jammer uh, log flume. I don't know why I can't have that word either. But the log jammer was rated the most wet log flume in America or something. I remember them marketing that. But I do remember riding that as a kid, so that was rather enjoyable. And then, did you ever get to ride the Serpent?
I did. Yes, the Serpent. It was my daughter's first ever roller coaster. She was maybe 4, at the most maybe 5, but it just terrified her, and she was screaming and very upset when she got off of it. And my wife said, congratulations, you've ruined her. She's never going to ride roller coasters with you when she gets older. She's not going to anything to do with it. And she didn't, for a few years after that experience. But that was my most memorable ride on that.
Yeah, that was my first big coaster. Actually, my first little coaster was their Little Dipper that was there. The Little Dipper, I've got RCDB pulled up right now looking at this stuff, but Little Dipper was like kind of like this. Is it Myler? Is that the manufacturer that do most of those just circle rides,
Yeah.
So Little
rides,
Dipper, right. That was actually Alan Herschel that made this one. And it closed in 2002, but they're not or RCDB's not sure when it opened. But the Serpent, I think, had a different name. Or maybe I'm just wrong. I always thought that it had a different name, but
no, it's called the Serpent. It was called
okay.
That. But it's like a little galaxy coaster.
Yeah.
For those listening, and just a lot of fun. Complimented the Screeching Eagle. At that time, most parks, you might have 1, at the most 2, maybe 3 roller coasters. So, their numbers were as good as anybody else's at that point in time. Did you ever do the Speedway little cars where, kind of went up, just around in circles, but, it kind of went up a little bit of a ramp and then came back around? It was a pretty good ride cycle on that. You maybe had like 3-4 minutes of ride time. Did you ever do that? That was one of my
did,
favorites,
and I remember thinking that the goal was to like ramp over the little hump, and I was disappointed that I was unable to do that.
Yeah, but that was so much fun that I would do that over and over again too. Was never told to go ride something else after I kept riding it repeatedly, but it was fun, And they had some great. I mean, really, they had some great rides.
Yeah. So I'm looking up the Serpent. Was moved to Press Play 989 on Kokomo Drive in Saginaw, Michigan, but it looks like it was
Saginaw. Yes,
it was closed in 2019 though, because they had it for a long time before it opened. But I saw that ride in about 2007 or 8. I was able to walk through the park. I'll actually put that video up. If you may remember from the first KI Central day at the park, we showed that in the Kings Island Theater. But Jerry Couch let us walk through and take pictures, and it still had the train on the tracks and stuff. It was just a lot of rehab. But somebody put on social...
and their flume ride, you would get soaked on that, wouldn't you?
Yeah, they said it was the wettest one in North America. So,
I mean, you hit that splashdown. I mean, you got wet.
Yeah, you certainly did. What about the boat ride? The actual the boat itself.
Little paddle boats?
Yeah. No, the big boat. Well, it's a big paddle boat. It's not like a little paddle boat you go on a date on. Do you remember that?
I do. And then you had the sky ride too?
Yes.
Did you like the sky ride?
I don't know if I ever rode the sky ride, to be honest. I might have been turned off by the fact that one of the vehicles fell into the lake at one point. Weren't you there that day?
Yes.
I mean, it was empty.
Was on it.
Yeah, but that's bad. I think from that point, like nowadays, I'd probably ride it just because this is the ride that dropped a seed or whatever. But when I was like, between the ages of 16 and 19, I remember thinking like you're an idiot if you ride that. But
yeah, I mean, it didn't come off the cable. Let's be clear about that. It did not come off the cable. It was just the seat part.
the seat part, like just the wooden part where people sit. So it was not.
Little bench where you'd sit, yeah, yeah, where
Oh,
you'd sit. So it wasn't like it broke off the thing or anything, nothing like that.
oh, I thought the whole thing fell, like the whole unit that was like attached to the thing. We need to get somebody on here that works for like Von Roll or something that can explain sky rides to us and like the science behind
Yeah,
them, because those things are pretty darn cool. So do you remember Cheddar's the mouse and
yeah, the characters,
yeah, Dasher the
the two
duck? That's
characters I
the other
remember.
one. I
Yeah, those are the
I kind of remember them a little bit, but did they have walk around characters or what? How did they do that?
those were the two that I remember, and it was the '70s when they were there. I don't remember seeing them in the later years after it became Americana, but they were there, from my young childhood days going there through, '76, '77 range. And then there was also swimming in the lake, which guests could do until 1976, I want to say. But that was also one of the things that a lot of guests look forward to. Let's go to LeSourdsville Lake and go swim in the lake, and then have a picnic.
Yeah, the lake was the attraction for the most part in the early days, right? Kind of like how Cedar Point's
Yeah,
beach was the
that was
attraction.
the one of the things that was there at the beginning. When it first opened, when it was more of a picnic, kind of place that had the swimming facilities. So that's what people did.
Yeah.
But you'd see hundreds of people in the lake.
Mhm.
I mean, it was popular.
And now I remember there being a pool. I'm guessing that they stopped swimming in the lake when they got the pool. Do you know why they
Yeah, I just
stopped
remember it was
allowing swimming?
1976. You could, I don't know. I just know after 1976 you couldn't do it anymore.
Mm. Probably because it's too hard to guard that, do lifeguard stuff. They couldn't. I mean, let's be honest. It
Yeah,
can't.
and it was a man-made. It was man-made, so there was like a concrete, floor at the
Mm,
bottom.
yeah. I wonder if today if it's still completely flat. I know that it was years ago. It was flat, and you could kind of tell that something was there, but I wonder what it's like today. So
Yeah, but it was beautiful. I mean, for photos,
mhm,
back in the day, with the lake and everybody in it,
yeah,
and then you had the roller coaster in the background. Because a lot of the park just kind of, you circled around, the lake to go ride the attractions. Um, the haunted house. Did you ever get to do that?
I don't think so.
I think it was called Tombstone Territory, I want to say. And then later on, maybe like Loggers Run or something like that. But you're not real clear on the names. I just remember, it's one of those ones you'd get in. It was almost like the one at Camden, but
Mhm.
it didn't, go up and things like that. It was more just flat track. But you'd bang the door and then turn the next room, bang the door, and that kind of a haunted house.
I want to say that wasn't a thing by the time I went there, but was was Loggers Run the name of the log flume though?
I
Really?
I don't know. I just know that that was a name of something. And I remember the haunted house. Maybe I'm thinking like Tombstone Territory was a name for it. As
Tombstone
kids, we just
Territory
called it the
was the
haunted house.
section.
Yeah, we just called it the haunted house.
It probably was just the haunted house. I'm scouring through the internet. They had a swinging ship with I think the Pew family brought in. Um,
Don't forget about the Iron Horse train ride.
yeah, that was a Chance Rides train, wasn't it?
Yeah, that opened in 1964, which was the same year that Cincinnati's Coney Island opened their train.
Yeah. Okay. So just scrolling through the website ronniesalerno.com, who was actually these are the photos from when I got to go into the park in 2007ish, but he noted that in 2011 that's when the Screeching Eagle was torn down. I remember Jerry Couch telling us that he planned to do it because he was terrified that somebody was going to sneak in there in the middle of the night and climb the lift hill and fall off and die, and then he's liable. Um,
Yeah. And then also, they didn't want to have, let people know that they were going to demolish it when they
right.
did, because that would have brought out a big crowd too. Because again, the enthusiasts, they really loved that coaster, and a lot of them, were hoping that it could be saved and go somewhere else. And he would see people that did sneak into the property, and they were taking pictures
Mhm.
and hovering around the ride. So it was the right thing again to do that, to not tell anybody that was happening until it happened.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I mean, let's be honest, by that point it was not salvageable anyway. You have a ride sitting for 9 years completely unmaintened. You're not saving that. Not for. I mean, again, we talk about the price of a ride. You can either move that, and you can have a few nostalgia nerds do it, or you can build a new ride that will please a new audience that will make money. And unfortunately, in today's world, I don't think that moving wooden coasters is gonna ever really be a thing again, at least in like North America. Um,
Yeah, and it was, you walked around after it closed, and I saw those pictures that Ronnie had
mhm,
taken and published, and it was just sad for me because that was woven into the fabric of my childhood going to that park, and we would go multiple times
mhm,
a summer. We didn't go to Florida or anything when I was kids. Our big things was Cincinnati's Coney Island, then Kings Island, and LeSourdsville and Americana.
yeah,
That's what we did. And to just see the weeds and everything growing up, through the coaster, and the condition of the flume, and just different things like that. It was really sad for me to see that.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was sad for me
Now, did
too.
you ever go to Fantasy Farm?
I
Did you ever
did.
go to Fantasy Farm right next to it?
Yeah, I did go to Fantasy Farm. And so for those of you who don't know what the heck we're talking about, Fantasy Farm was an even little kiddier version, mainly with animals, but had a few rides that was right freaking next door. So you guys think
It
King's Dominion and
was.
Busch Gardens are close together? These were right next door. Now that was
Yeah, there was like a fence that divided
yeah,
them.
yeah. So there was a some sort of legal thing where if and I'm just coming off the top of my head, but I believe that the owner of LeSourdsville Lake sold it and then agreed to not build a new amusement park within 100 miles or something like that. So under his son-in-law's name, he built one right next door. Fantasy Farm closed in like 1990 or so. Um,
91, yeah. So it opened in 63
mhm.
and then closed in 91. Um, your petting zoo, you had your goats, deer, horses, sheep. So when you're a little kid, you're 5 or 6 years old. I mean, that's pretty cool to be able to get right up, close to these animals, and you could feed them the straw and the different things that they would eat.
Yes.
So that was fun,
Yeah, and
when you're a little
I
kid.
distinctly I went there with my preschool class. So I have very few memories, but I do remember seeing a peacock walking around. And I thought it
Yes,
had
there are
escaped
peacocks, and
because and even the Cincinnati Zoo lets peacocks do whatever they want, so I guess they just won't fly off. But so here's a fun fact: the tilt-a-whirl from there made it over to Coney Island, Cincinnati. That's another one where I'm
mhm.
not sure where it went. Certainly was not scrapped. Somebody bought it, but very few people know that. The tilt-a-whirl.
Yeah, so they had some rides there
Mhm.
at Fantasy Farm. It was kind of designed for kids that were 12 and under.
Yeah.
So there was like a little playground area. I remember this big red barn. They had this ride. It was like a little train car. You got in, and you kind of pedaled around a track, and there was this big red barn. I can remember that
Hmm.
being there. They had a little turnpike attraction, and I threw a fit because my sister was the one who was going to drive. I wanted to drive, but she said no, she's driving. So I was upset the whole ride. I don't know, I'm, maybe 6 years old. So we go around, we come back in. I'm still angry. So it says stop right here. There's a car in front of you. So the people in the vehicle in front of us, they're starting to get out of the thing. So I just hit the pedal on our thing, the one my sister and I were in, and it goes and just rams into it. And these people, they fall out of it, onto the ground and that. And so at 6 years old, I was banned from that attraction.
Well, I mean, even on the other side at Americana, they were asking you to choose other rides eventually. Um, so, yeah,
So a lot of memories, getting that, I was just upset that would have been my first time behind the wheel myself.
yeah,
So I was excited because I met the height requirement to do it. But no, my sister, she decided, no, I'm driving. So
yeah. So
still upset about that.
the there, so they have a train. They had a train as well, and I believe it went underground at some point. Is that right?
Don't remember it going underground. I remember there being a train
Hmm.
there. Again, I'm very, very young here at this park. But I do remember there being a train because I remember like the little, you know, steam, that coming out of it, but small, very small.
Yeah, because I don't think it's there anymore, but I know that as of maybe a decade ago or so. And now this whole plot of land has changed, so don't go looking for it. But there was still a tunnel underground that went. It was not exactly a tunnel. It was about 8 feet long, and that was for a ride. I always assumed it was a train, but it could have been anything, and it was before my memory. Um, oh, another factoid. So switching back to LeSourdsville Lake. Um, did you know that the antique cars from LeSourdsville Lake went to Kentucky Kingdom? That's where they
Yes,
got their antique cars from. Isn't that cool?
very cool. I mean, like I said, it kind of lives on, in other places.
Almost every park does. If you look at it, very few parks are just. I mean, even like Hard Rock Park, for example, that's a modern example where they had some huge like premier rides, coasters, B&Ms and stuff, and they the ones in Vietnam, and they're all over the place now. So that's really cool. Now, you mentioned again that they didn't see Kings Island as a threat because.
Not the beginning.
So, what did they do to compensate for it as time went on? Like when they realized that Kings Island was a threat.
They tried to have more special events, do different things like that to just draw attention. When Kings Island's opening rides, the racer was a big deal at the
Hmm.
time. And then you're opening, Screaming Demon and, the Beast, those things happening in the 1970s. You weren't going to be able to compete with that, in your Americana. So you had to do it a different way with, special events, different stunts, kept the ticket prices low. So that was the only thing they could do to really compete. They did get some overflow. I mean, there were time, and I had a lot of friends in the 1980s. We would do this, and throughout the 90s, they would come in from out of town, and we would go over there for a couple hours, and then come back to Kings Island, just so they could experience the park. And I wanted to see it, so they get some of that from people. But Kings Island had that picnic facility, so uh, they just couldn't compete anymore with what was their bread and butter, which was the companies and the picnics, especially on those weekends. Sundays were just huge days, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah. Did they have a season pass program?
If they did, it was near the end, because I just remember it was always like $3.50 at in the early '70s,
Yeah.
and then I remember it being like 19.99. I think that might have been where it topped out for me.
When I went.
But I'm sure they did. I'm sure they did have a season pass, but I don't. It never was something that I bought.
Mhm.
Um, but I just remember the tickets were always they were pretty affordable.
Yeah, even at the time, because I assume that they added a season pass no earlier than when Kings Island did in '79. They probably did it maybe the next year to compete or something. But so they competed with Kings Island. They thought it wasn't a threat. It ended up being a threat. Um,
Yeah, they thought there was room for both, and they really thought that Kings Island was going to have to draw well over 1 million people
mhm.
to be able to hit their budgets. Because they knew that Americana, a couple hundred associates is all you needed. They knew at Kings Island you needed 1,500. So they knew that they thought they'd be able, if they could continue to draw that 600, 700,000 guest a year range, that they were going to be okay.
Hmm.
And they knew that Kings Island was going to need that seven figures to get there. And well, Kings Island's first year, they hit 2 million.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So anyway, time marches on. Was it Park Entertainment that ended up buying them? Was their last owner before they went on hiatus for a while? So that was the group that owned Coney Island, and that Park Entertainment went bankrupt, I believe. So Americana closes in 1999. Is that what your notes say?
1999. Yeah,
1999.
1999.
So it sits abandoned. Jerry Couch, who is a local businessman that owns Couch's RVs, quite the character. I did get to meet him. He bought it and intended to, he's one of those guys with a lot of plans. I hope he's doing well, by the way. He's since retired in like 2012 or so, and even his RV dealership is gone. But his son's still in the RV business, actually. So maybe we should have him on at some point. But so he intended to have this RV camp plus amusement park, and then it's all in conjunction with his business of selling RVs and RV parts. It actually wasn't that bad of a business model, but he ran into the problem that often happens, and that's he buys this park and he's like, I do not know how to run a theme park. So, as part of not knowing how to run a theme park, he hires the Pugh family. And now the Pugh family is
Hmm.
former carnival operators. This did not go well. I know that lawsuits flew back and forth, and the Pugh family fled before Labor Day. Um, I think that Jerry Couch's accusation was that they grabbed all the cash registers and stuff and left. So forgive me if that's not the exact story. I just know that um, that was what, according to Jerry Couch, was the reason why the park was unable to reopen. Now, with that being said, even if he couldn't reopen because it was really not making money, he'd probably push it off onto other people as well. But so he reopened it in 2002. It was open for about 2.5 months. That was my last visit there, obviously. But it was dollar days, and I didn't even know this going
Yeah,
in.
I want to say it opened in July.
It was, yes, it was
That
well,
summer.
it was at least late June. It was sometime like well into the core season. It might
Yeah.
have been July, but so it was dollar days, and I didn't know it. It was just I was dating this girl at the time, and we wanted to go to Kings Island, but we had friends that were going to give us tickets, but they fell through, so we did went there instead. So went there, and it was $1 to park. It was $1 to get into the park, for your wristband or however they were doing it, and then like most food items were $1. So it was actually a pretty
Yeah,
kill
we
deal.
might have been there the same day because I remember that dollar day promotion, and I wanted to see, the park back open again.
Mhm.
Pretty good crowd that day.
I don't remember having to wait long for anything, but I also don't have that same mentality. Like for me, it's like I'm not waiting 3 trains for the Screeching Eagle, you know. But when I was there, like I might have waited a half hour for it for all I remember. Um, but yeah, so I'm glad I had that memory because my actual memories would be very vague otherwise because I went there as a kid. Probably the last time I went, I was about 10. Switched to Kings Island. I've got many, many great memories of Kings Island, obviously. And then was able to go back for one last go around. So, with that
Hmm.
being said, though, I mentioned this earlier, but in 2007 or so, was the first KIC day your first year at Kings Island? Was it 2000? It
It
was
was in
because
2007.
Firehawk had just opened. Yeah. So we talked Jerry Couch into letting us you know, walk through the property and take pictures. And we said it's a school project. So Jerry, if you're listening, I'm sorry we lied to you, but we didn't break anything. But he let us walk through. He was very courteous and a character that would probably not fit in today's work environment. Let's put it that way. But the lake had been drained, so as I mentioned before, it's this big flat area, and it's got like buoys and stuff throughout it, but it's empty now. So he drained the lake. The Screeching Eagle was still there at the time. It was torn down about 5 years later. And then a lot of the other buildings were in really, really bad shape. There was some sort of puppet show or something in like a building shaped like a clown. Does that sound familiar to you? So
It does sound familiar.
yeah, so that was over by Screech and Eagle, if I recall. That had like wind damage and stuff, so all the tarps and stuff were ripped off of it. All the bumper cars were flipped upside down. I don't know if that's from vandals or if it was from like they were doing maintenance, assuming it was going to open at some point. Um, but yeah. So Jerry Couch retires in 2015, I think. Thanks again, RonnieSalerno.com for supplying that information. But so the city, Butler County actually buys it, Butler County, Ohio. They build a Butler Tech in 2017, and they begin working on a public park that's currently there. So LeSourdsville Lake, and I wanted to make the title of this article "Not Dead Yet," just kind of a joke. It's not gone. You can go there right now, assuming it's during park
Yeah.
hours. The remnants of the Skyrider there. There's a bunch of buildings that were there. They did such a great job of taking this park that was once grand and beautiful and preserving as much of it as they can and making it like a normal public park. Have you ever been able to swing by there, Don?
Yes, and I actually got to do it a couple weeks ago, and I mean, it looks beautiful now with what they've done with it. There's a bicycle trail there. I almost didn't recognize it at first. We were just going down the road, and I was like, "Oh, wait a minute, that's where Americana was." So you got to take a look at it, and it looks beautiful. And with that school there, that campus looks
Mm-hmm.
great. Um, they've done a good job. The existing buildings that are still there, they look refreshed. So I mean, it's got a second act.
Absolutely. Don, do you have any final thoughts about LeSourdsville Lake Americana?
One thing came to my mind that I remembered,
Mm-hmm.
and this was more in the '90s, but they had like this tent. It was like a Cinemax type of show that they did, like video,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like, do you remember that?
No, but I've read about it. They're like this
Yeah, so I
sounds
remember
right. Let's put it
that.
that way.
Yeah, I remember that. No seats. You had to sit on the floor, but I remember that. But no, it just it was again that that chosen playground. If you lived in Southwest Ohio, that's what you did. In the '40s, '50s, '60s, and early '70s, and that was the heyday for it. And it was right up there with all the other seasonal amusement parks in the country. I mean, it was a special place for so many people and a lot of memories. And it's unfortunate that it's gone, but it is. And the memories, though, they're going to live forever.
Amen. All right. Okay. So I know a lot of people have been on the edge of their seats about this, but Don, I think you've been in pretty good spirits given, like, because, big life changes sometimes can either, like, make people feel like relieved or make them feel sad or nostalgic or melancholy or whatever, but you seem to be pretty chipper. So obviously the news of the week broke. It was all over social media. People were asking me about it. I know members of your family even reached out to me. What? Just spill the beans and tell us what happened.
Well, this past Saturday, my daughter Maria, she got married to a great guy. His name is John Engel. They're both school teachers. The wedding was held and the reception as well at the Rosewood Manor, which is in Springboro, Ohio. Just a beautiful facility. I mean, and the people that were there throughout the whole process of from the time that we first met with them all the way through till we left and we're cleaning up the place on Saturday night. I mean, they were just phenomenal. So I would highly recommend that if you live in that area of Ohio and you're looking for a place to get married, the Rosewood Manor in Springboro. But for my daughter, I mean, for years, she always had dreams of what her wedding would look like, and it was everything that she could, that she dreamed it would be and more. I mean, that's
Hmm.
that's the way to describe it. And everything just went off the way it was supposed to. The food was really good. Everyone had a good time, after the wedding with the reception, and got to see a lot of people that the parents and the kids that she had grown up with, gone to school with, were in show choir with her. So it was good catching up with everybody there. Just a special day, and so yeah, I mean, they're off on a Disney cruise right now. That was the thing they did right after the wedding,
Hmm.
around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. They get in the vehicle, they go home, get their luggage, and then to the airport, where they spend a couple of days at Disney parks, and then are on the cruise right now. And I've seen some different pictures that she keeps sending us, telling us we have to take a cruise. And I think that's something that my wife and I are going to do at some point. We've never done that, but the photos that we've seen, that has sold me on it. So we're definitely going to do that. But yeah, definitely a life-changing thing. You think about it for years that your daughter's going to get married, and then here's the day. It came up fast, and it was it. I won't use the word. I mean, a lot of times you get emotional at a wedding, but because of who she was marrying and how I've gotten to know him over the past couple years and gotten to know the parents, um, it was just great. She's marrying into a great.
Yeah, she most certainly is. I've actually, to add some context to it, I've known Maria. I met her in 2006. So how old would she have been?
Oh my gosh, she probably would have been 11,
Yeah,
10,
she was
11.
like a little kid. But I probably saw her around Cincinnati Mighty Ducks games. I didn't I knew who you were, but I didn't know you, and I certainly wouldn't have associated her with you.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, she was a fixture at the Mighty Ducks games. All the fans knew who she was when she was like 4, 5, and 6 years old.
yeah, and then saw photos. She actually she reached out to me about a week and a half before the wedding, and she's like, "Hey, I was just thinking, and I don't know why I didn't invite you. So will you please come to my wedding?" And I have, a little bit of FOMO because I actually had a different wedding to go to. I was at a different wedding on Saturday. It's my girlfriend's friend from when they worked at Great Wolf Lodge together years ago. But just seeing the photos and all the faces I recognize from Kings Island and stuff, because Maria and I, we don't exactly like hang out on weekends, but our spheres of social like kind of intersect. So it would have been fun to be there, but I saw the wonderful photo. I saw like the dessert table, like where they had the little cupcakes. That was
Oh my
so
gosh.
elaborately done. Um, I know Maria. You can
And that was done by Laura's cousin in I think it's called Waynesburg, Kentucky.
uh
It's down near
near
the
near
Tennessee border. It's like
Bucky's. Let's just
Waynesburg
say
or Wayne, whatever it is down that way. But it's near Stanford down that way. But she has her own little bakery there, and so she did all of the desserts, and those were very well received. So a lot of family members chipped in and helped with it. Just the setup to the couple of days before the wedding to get the venue ready to go. So many of the moms that my wife had become friends with during her show choir days, they all took time off work to come help get it set up. They stuck around afterward to help get it
Mhm.
all cleaned up. So just really, really, something that I remember for a long time, just the way everybody pitched in, but just really how happy she was, how happy John was, and it couldn't have gone any better.
Well, so when Maria and I talked, when she messaged me about coming to the wedding, we found out that we're going to be potentially at the same Disney parks on the same days for
Yeah.
2 days. So we're going to try to organize at least like taking a picture together or something. So hopefully you'll see that on. I'll put it on our social media if she's okay with that. But that could be
I
really
think
fun.
one day is with Studios, and one day is going to be Magic Kingdom. I think,
Right,
right?
and we're
When you
we're
guys
going
are
on
at the same
this.
parks.
I think we're going on the same day, which that'll be really cool. It's difficult. I mean, it's not like Kings Island where we can meet up and like, hey, let's ride the beast together because there's Lightning Lane and all that stuff. So it's going to be nearly impossible to do something like that. But what we did decide was that if it's convenient or whatever, we'll get together, we'll take a photo just to commemorate the fact that we ran into each other down there. But congratulations to Maria and John. Like I said, I know Maria for a long time. Very talented girl. She can sing like a freaking angel. Um, and then John, I've met briefly, but he seems like a really fun guy to be around. So for good for them, happy for them.
Yeah, during the rehearsal that on the Friday night, I couldn't get my line right, and all I had to say was when they say, who gives her, away, and I just had to say her mother and I kept botching that up.
What did you say?
Well, it's like my wife and I, or whatever. I just kept, botching it up, and then, because they're all in both sides of the wedding party. They're all theater people,
Right.
and I still might say, hey, look, give me some slack here. I didn't do any theater growing up or anything like that, so I didn't have to memorize lines, but it went perfect when I came down the aisle with her, you know. Yeah, I think she was worried I was going to say something, just different to try to make people laugh and that, but I didn't. I kept it straight, and when when they said, "Hey, who gives her?" and I was just like, her mother and I, and then all of the bridesmaids all looked at me like, "He got it right."
Did you speak at the rehearsal dinner?
No, not really, because we all talked to each other, throughout the process, of during the rehearsal, and we were all in the same rooms and things like that. So everybody talked, and so I didn't do it there, but that was at Warped Wing in Springboro, another place that I highly recommend.
What kind of food is Warped Wing?
It is, you've got your, obviously, chicken wings, but you've got briskets, you've got um, all kinds of different meats, pulled pork.
So it's like a
So
like Dollywood. All right.
yeah, but it was
So
really, I mean, really good food. And then they got these like tater tot type things
hmm,
that you could just get that,
yeah.
and you're gonna feel like you're in heaven. I mean, those were amazing.
Absolutely. Hey, so congratulations again, once again, Mr. and Mrs. Engel. Is that the last name? How do you say it?
Engel,
Engel.
correct.
So that's so cool. So
Yeah, so that's the big news. The last couple of weeks where people, since Saturday, whatever it's
it's
been,
been all over
talking
social
about it
media.
on social, and
I mean,
yeah,
I'm not
exactly.
kidding. I've
Everybody
had
congratulating me, and
Facebook people have been contacting me on Facebook. People have been tweeting me, texting me. Like old friends have come out of the woodwork. just to talk about this. So congratulations to this too.
Well, for a lot of people, unless you saw me during my hockey days, on the game nights and that, some of the pictures, it was the first time anyone had ever seen me in a suit.
That was my first time seeing you.
So,
No, I take that back. I've seen you wear like a shirt and tie because like I've worked with you on the media stuff, and I distinctly remember you wearing like a jacket, shirt, and tie, but not a suit. That was weird seeing that.
and I can remember probably since the early 90s when I was working for hockey teams that, when we had to wear a suit, and then later on it kind of relaxed a little bit, just have a jacket, and a tie, and wear some khakis kind of a thing. But yeah, so that was what a lot of people were messaging me about was, oh my gosh, I've never seen you in a suit before.
Yeah, that's crazy. All right. Well, Don, I think it's time for a little segment we like to call the Pick Six. All right.
All right.
So,
I'll get it
yeah,
started
you go
here.
first.
We have Molly Murphy. She was named president of Universal Creative. Very, very impressive background resume for her. She comes to that role after working at the architecture and design firm Gensler. And that was most recently serving there as principal and co-managing director of the firm's New York division. So, that's a pretty big job there. She co-founded the firm's digital experience design practice, which uses interactive and visualization technology and software to create immersive experiences. I think, Ryan, she's going to be a great fit there. What about you?
I agree. I think she's going to be fantastic. She's got quite a work ahead of her with Epic Universe. We haven't done much coverage of Epic Universe recently, and I almost threw something into the Pick Six about that, but I don't want to make this a weekly thing of like, another piece of tracks up. But Universal Creative is the standard nowadays. It does sound like that she's very qualified to do this. So congratulations to her.
Yeah, I think they're in good hands.
Absolutely. All right. Story number 2. So there was an article that came out about Holiday World's drone show. Drones are the new thing this year. They have 400 of them, though. And they kind of just talk about the process. A lot of this was covered by Joe Rossi when we talked about Fun Fireworks in 50 at Kings Island. But, all the drones have to be charged up. They're all run off GPS. You can't do them overhead. That'd be cool if you could do them overhead. Like you could write something over a different section of the park, but the technology's not there because if it loses GPS, it just lands. But they're actually doing 400 drones, and the standard, it seems to be, is 200. So you can see how elaborate that is with those 400. But Don, how much longer do you think that we'll have drone shows before that's something that people have already seen?
I think 3 or 4 more years, and then we'll be on to the next thing. But it's definitely changed the nighttime experiences. I think fireworks alone, don't get it done too much anymore for people. They want to see a bigger and better kind of show. And, now that you've seen, Kings Island, you've seen Holiday World, you've seen Dollywood, using drones, that's now become kind of the expectation, or otherwise they're not likely maybe to stay at night to just watch just a traditional, 3 to 4 minute fireworks show. So it's definitely makes it more immersive, makes it more spectacular. But, I'm looking forward to the next 3 or 4 years, what maybe the next thing might be. And I really, really like that they showed, behind the scenes, how this all works and how it gets coordinated and what's all involved. Because everybody loves the show, but they don't realize what's involved behind the scenes to make that work, and all the people that's involved in making it happen and putting that show on for the guest.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's drones are sticky, let's put it that way, because you can't just do them once. Do you recall the first time we watched that first preview night of Fun Fireworks in 50, when I ran into you probably 10 or 15 seconds after the show ended? Do you remember what my exact quote, and I stand behind it?
I think you said something about there's no turning back from this, or something along those lines.
I believe my exact words were, I hope you like drones because you're stuck with them for the rest of your life.
It was something, I knew it was something along those lines. And I mean, it changed the game. It really did. And, that's what we're starting to see now. And, it really, really enhances it. And you do want to stick around, you extend your stay to the end of the night so you can see these shows. And no matter how many times you watch it, it doesn't get old.
So let me ask you this about drones, and this would probably be more of a question suited for Joe Rossi, but let me get your opinion from a marketing standpoint. Do you think it would be cool if we were to the point now where it was cost effective to have the drone show to be a little bit more dynamic, as in the one that they have at Kings Island, Adventure Awaits? It does the same thing every night, but instead of having the Kings Island logo hover in the sky for a while, which by the way is awesome, and I wish they would have been able to do that for the Fun Fireworks in 50, but they could say Grand Carnival, July whatever until August whatever. Do you think that day is soon, and do you think that would be an effective marketing tool, or do you think that's too much?
Well, I think you can. No, I think you can do that. When you saw a Fourth of July show, it was certainly reconfigured and different for that. So yeah, I mean the technology is there to do that now if you wanted to.
Yeah, the technology's there, but I'm wondering, they clearly put money into the 4th of July. So what I wouldn't want them to do
Yeah,
is,
but if you got something that's only going to be like a 2-week run or something, 3-week run, maybe you don't want to interrupt your nighttime show, which is what people come to see, and maybe they want to see that same show again, or people have talked about that show, and then somebody else goes because of that and wants to see it, what they've heard. So you don't really want to mess with it.
no,
too much,
I
but
wouldn't
maybe
throw
that
it in the
1 or 2.
middle. I wouldn't remove a section, but I'm saying like the very end of the show, when the drones are just lingering, to have like some sort of message or whatever. But of course, like it's a monkey's paw situation too, because what I don't want is, fireworks going off drones and then the drink Coca-Cola. I don't want that. But I'm saying like for park specific stuff, I think that it could be an interesting way to advertise.
Now that you bring that, I never thought about that, Brian, but now that you mention that, I can see the day where some park is going to have, a presenting sponsor with the drones, whether that's right at the beginning or right at the end. But I think, now that you mention it, someone's going to think about that. Someone's going to do
Well, it's already been done, not in a park, but in Cincinnati when they did the drone show for, I think, the Blink celebration. It was sponsored by Alta Fiber, which is one of the internet suppliers, and they
Yes.
made their logo within the show. But if it's cool, I mean, if it looks cool, then cool.
As long as it blends in, right?
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, like, I wouldn't want to have an advertisement in the sky, but I think that a message that people might want to see, because people want to know what's going on at the parks. Especially season pass heavy parks where they want to know why they're coming the next time. Like I don't know. Very cool article. Very, very good information. Just Google it. You'll find it. It's just fantastic. What's up next?
Next, we have permits. It shows that Disney plans to update Jungle Cruise at Walt Disney World. Now, Ryan, we've seen these different things and they do updates and it looks like it's, they got a certain window to do it, a few years here. Do you think it's going to be a dramatic change, or you think it's going to be something that they're just, kind of refurbishing a little bit and it's still going to be known as Jungle Cruise?
I would guess 100% that it'll still be Jungle Cruise. I think the experience will be relatively similar, just with upgraded animatronics, because Jungle Cruise is cool. But if you just rode Tron and then you ride Jungle Cruise, one of them seems pretty passe. What are your thoughts?
Yes, I agree with you that they just have to upgrade it and kind of match other things that they're doing now in the park.
I agree. Cool. All right. So the next story is 2023 Amusement Today Golden Ticket Awards are going to be September 8th through the 9th at Dollywood, and registration is open. You can currently make reservations at the host hotel, which is Dreammore. Unfortunately, Hearthsong will not be open yet. That's not till November. But you ever gotten to go to the Golden Ticket Awards, like the actual ceremony?
I went several times.
Did you really?
I did, yes. And, a few of those times I was one of the ones that, got up and collected the golden ticket when the park would win that certain category. But yeah, it's a great time. The night before with the reception, and you have all these different people throughout the industry there, some pretty big names in the industry, and it's just a great networking opportunity, but very well done, always by the Amusement Today staff. It's the like the Golden Globes of the industry, and if you can do it, go there. It is a can't miss opportunity. You definitely want to check it out. like I said, it's really, really well done, and it's just a different way to see how the parks are recognized. For the different things that they're doing throughout the year, all the different categories are always fun, and when you're in the crowd, it's also fun when they put the 5 or 10 nominees or whatever up on the screen, and you're trying to guess yourself what order you think it's going to be in. So it's just a fun experience to be there. I mean, you can watch it online, but nothing beats being there in person.
I really want to go someday. Maybe we can do the podcast from there. I say that with everything that goes on. All right, what's next?
Well, you know what? I think this year what we should do, when they're doing it, we should have it on and be watching it, and then as the category comes up, you and I discuss, after the winner, what would have been our, how we would have had those ranked. I think we can do that this year.
Yeah, we could try that. Maybe even do it live, like we promised last year and did not deliver. I still feel bad about that.
Oh, we promised for 55 weeks or something we're going to do this stuff.
Yeah.
So we will do it. And I think that's a perfect thing to do live, is for us to be in a room watching it and have discussion as it's happening.
Yeah.
And kind of be the analyst for that. All right, next. Back to Disney parks. They saw a decrease in wait times on the 4th of July, both in Orlando for their 4 parks, also at Disneyland. Do you think this is a concern, Ryan, or do you think it's just kind of typical that maybe that's how those parks are all the time on that holiday? What are your thoughts?
So for 4th of July itself, it is not concerning, because I always felt like 4th of July would be very hit or miss, because it's going to go one of two ways. It's either going to go, it's 4th of July, we need to go to Disneyland, or it's 4th of July, there's a million things to do besides Disneyland. I know that a lot of reporting has said that their attendance in their parks has been down. I've been watching planning a Disney trip coming up in a couple of days. I've been watching the wait times rather closely. They seem to be within reason, which you should not expect during the core season over the summer. But maybe the attitude's changed, and I'm not talking about their thing with DeSantis or anything. I'm talking about maybe people have figured out that the summer isn't really a great time to be in Florida. It's just way too hot, and it's way more pleasant in like January, February, March. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I agree with you there that, different things, people might look at it a little bit differently, in that I do think they've gotten to the point to where, the cost to go in, to get your tickets, it's maybe exceeded what, the average family can handle. So you might have priced some people out, and they're doing some different things. You do see some different deals that are being offered that are out there. Mm-hmm. You never really saw that before.
Right.
So, I think it's something that, they're looking at closely, but every time I see pictures or video, I mean, it's packed.
I'll certainly report
whenever
back.
I see any pictures.
One thing I will tell you is that even somebody that's both empathetic to theme parks, as like I am, or sympathetic, I guess would be the word, and somebody that's tech savvy and knows parks and kind of gets it, this lightning lane stuff, I've had to pull in every resource possible. I asked your daughter about it when she reached out to me how it works. My sister-in-law is a big Disney World fan, so she explains some stuff. It's just, I think they overcomplicated the process. They're trying to make a better experience.
That could be a factor. Yeah, that definitely could be a factor if it's too overwhelming when you're just trying to figure it out on your device.
Right. I didn't know. I mean, we keep up with the news, and I still didn't. I thought that basically for Tron and stuff like that, you had to pay for the lightning lane, and that was the only way you can ride it without having to wait forever. But apparently there's like a virtual queue that you can also do. I just, I think people see this and they're just like, I'd rather do something else. I think it's too stressful. Yeah,
can't make it hard. And you're supposed to go there to relax and have fun. You're right. If it's stressful, that's not something that you're going to be interested in.
All right. Last story.
All right. Final one, Ryan. What do we got?
This is me. So Haunted Mansion at Magic Kingdom, speaking of which, that's going to be closed for refurbishment from August 7th to the 9th. It's got to be something little. So it's you and about 1 million other people. It's like said something about like a hat box ghost. What is that?
Well, that's like a character. They have it at the Haunted Mansion in Disneyland, but I don't know. I think it's just it's a short-term thing. where it's the 7th, 8th, and 9th. That's of August. That's the only time it's going to be down. So it's not going to be any kind of major work. So I think it's just really, at this time, I think some routine refurbishment. You're not going to see the Hatbox Ghost all of a sudden there on August 10th, I don't believe. It could happen, but I don't believe that's going to happen. I think that's something that would happen down the road. But we'll see.
Yeah, and you got to remember that Disney standards are not the same standards that the rest of the world works off of. So they could be replacing every motor in there, every chain in there, but they would have 15 crews working 48 straight hours.
They're where they have rides that are down, for 3 days, 5 days, maybe 2 week period. They're open daily. They don't have the winter months to kind of rehab everything. So, it happens during the season. So this is one of those things that you see with a lot of different attractions. The fact that it's a marquee attraction there, it's going to draw a little more attention to it. But I do like the fact that they put it out there far enough in advance that, you can plan accordingly.
Yeah. I love Haunted Mansion. Looking forward to that one. So Don, we've got we're kicking an extra point today. What's the latest news that came up right before we started recording?
Carowinds, they released a statement with an update on Fury 325. Provide a lot of information for everybody, and throughout the industry, everybody's watching that and anxious to see what's happening. And I thought they've done a very, very good job of being honest, transparent. Keeping everybody in the loop, exactly what they're doing, what's all involved, when you might see it back open again, even down to like how many test cycles you have to do. I think it's kind of a model that you could look at if you are, a PR person, communications department at parks throughout the country, and just look at how they've handled this and how, like I said, just transparent they've been. You don't see that a lot, and I really, want to give them credit for doing that. And by doing that, they've kept all the rumors and the speculation and everything just kind of taken on a life of its own.
Right.
With the way social media is today. So I think they've controlled the narrative. And I think that people really appreciate that.
So, quick update on this. Actually, right before we hit this topic, I got some pictures from Brandon from Theme Park Predictions, who's been on the show previously, and he sent them. I'm going to put them right. Wait, I'm out of camera. Right here. I'll put them there. But the new support is on site now. That is being shipped in as we speak. So he sent me some pictures. I'll put them on the show. But make sure you check out Theme Park Predictions because he's got some pretty good information. Well, that was a fun walk down memory lane, Don.
It was, and just rekindling a lot of memories as we were talking back and forth. You'd mentioned something. You mentioned like the boat ride, and then that visual came back to my head. How you got in it, and then just kind of went around, the lake a little bit, and just little things like that. And it was just, just part of my life. Obviously it was part of yours. You got to see it more toward the tail end, but I grew up there. So a lot of special memories, and I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it tonight.
Yeah, so do I. All right. So so make sure that you subscribe to us on YouTube by searching for the Attractions Group podcast. Remember what we said about merchandise. We will have it to you. Send us a PM if you want a preview because we'll sell it now. Trust me. You can subscribe on your favorite podcast apps. And then make sure you follow us on Twitter at attractions_GRP. Thanks, everyone. Have a good week.